All right, today we're going to be going through a carburetor on a Honda CRF or an XR50. This particular one is off the XR50, but not a lot of changes in those years. Now we've got the carburetor obviously off the motorcycle already. We've got the throttle cap that comes down through here with the throttle cable, and then the slide that pulls up out of there. First thing, we've got that slide that runs down here, and this is how you adjust it. This screw right here, it's a Phillips screw or a flathead screw, and you barely have to make any adjustment on there to make a big difference on your motorcycle. So make sure that you're only adjusting this when it's completely warmed up. Make sure you only do like an 1/8 turn at a time. Here's your choke here, and what that's doing is opening and shutting this butterfly. You've got a couple different positions you can set it in, and then this pin here kind of keeps it in that position wherever you want that. We've got your fuel coming in here, we've got a vent here, and I'll show you these different ports and how they work. And this is air filter side here, and then we've got the motor side here. I'm going to flip this carburetor upside down. We're going to take this bowl off. This is called the bowl area. We can drain our fuel by this the screw here, and you just take a flat screwdriver and turn this out a couple turns. Fuel will dump out this bottom nipple here. Now you want to make sure that you've got a tube on the bottom of this, a hose on the bottom of this, so that your fuel isn't draining directly onto your motor. 2 Phillips screws to remove this bottom bowl here. And if you've got a gasket kit, your new kit will come with a new O-ring for this bowl. It's always good to use that new O-ring. There is your bowl there. 2 Phillips screws there. So you want to make sure there's no debris in here. You want to make sure it's cleaned out, not filled up with gummed up fuel there. And that one's discolored a little bit, but it is clean. Next thing, we've got your main jet here. Take a flat screwdriver. It can be a little bit bigger screwdriver. If you use too small of a screwdriver, you'll end up rounding that head off kind of on the inside there. So I like to use a big enough screwdriver so we're not going to have that issue. This is your main jet, and this is a 58 main jet. You want to make sure that when you hold this up to light, you can see through it. You also want to make sure that you can blow through it with compressed air, Carb&Choke cleaner. I prefer this gum out Carb&Choke cleaner. It works really well. That is your main jet. Next, we've got your. Next, we're going to pull your float out of here, and that is this Phillips screwdriver, and it's got a pin that runs all the way through there. And you don't have to pull that Phillips screw completely out, and this pin here will pop right out. We've got your needle here. You want to make sure that it is not grooved at all. Make sure there's no debris down in here. This is what you call the seat. And on this model, your needle, this needle here is not adjustable, and your seat is not replaceable. So if you've got a damaged needle, replace it. If you've got a damaged seat, you're going to have to replace that carburetor. Next thing, we've got your pilot jet, and it is very small, and that is here. Now on this pilot jet, on this particular model, you cannot pull this. Well, it is pressed in there, so you can pull it out. A lot of times you'll damage it when you pull it out. You want to be awful careful if you are doing that. What you're doing with that pilot jet, this port here, okay, and I'm going to show you, we'll come back to that pilot area there, but we've got a screw here that it's set from the factory, and generally I didn't look that spec up before I did this video, but generally it's about a turn to a turn and a half, rarely more than 2. So what you do is you completely seat it. So 1 or a half turn, 1 and a half. That's 1.5 turns in is completely seated. So to do the same thing, you want to back it out, but we're going to take it out, clean through there, blow through it with compressed air, and then I'll show you how to set it again. And there'll be a spring in behind here, so be careful we don't lose that. Take compressed air, blow through it. Now, when you blow through with compressed air, right here, you'll have air coming out of this port here, as well as the port straight down in there. There's a tiny, tiny hole right next to your main jet area, and that is where it's pulling from. So you want to make sure that those ports are clean. Now what you can do is take a jet cleaner here and stick it down in there. If you have a light, you can shine down in there and see where you're supposed to be putting this jet cleaner at. You want to make sure you can blow through it with compressed air. Make sure that passage is free and clear. Now run this all the way back in. Once it's completely seated, take it a turn and a half back out. So there's half, 1 1/2. And that is where you need to be. And you can adjust that too, slightly, no big adjustments. Putting our main jet back in there. Flat screw. This is a brass jet going into an aluminum carburetor, so you don't have to be extremely tight with it. Make sure this is all cleaned off. You can blow compressed air through all of this. Run the pen through here. And then put the needle. Slide the needle in there just like that. And sometimes a little tricky lining that needle up and then putting that pin in. You want to make sure you get it in there straight. It doesn't look like we're all the way down right there. Yep, and that needle ended up falling off. So you want to make sure you get it in there perfectly. And we'll tighten this one back down. Again, doesn't have to be extremely tight, but that'll a lot of times bring that float back up then. So now when we have fuel coming in here, this is fuel from our fuel tank coming in here. When we push up on this, it should shut that fuel off. So you can actually leave that bowl off. Sometimes I do that to check and see if that float is seating properly. If you push up on it slightly, you don't have to use a lot of force. Push up, that should seal completely, and there should be no more fuel dumping into that carburetor. All right, now we've got our main jet tightened up there. Now we're gonna make sure this O-ring is in good condition. We're gonna set this bowl back on there. 2 Phillips screws. And snug these back up. Now your carburetor, once you get back on the machine, you may have to adjust your idle slightly. I forgot to show you one area. When you blow through your main jet port with compressed air with Carb&Choke cleaner, the Carb&Choke cleaner is going to come out of that port there. So that is a carburetor on a Honda 50 motorcycle.